Don't say bad stuff. Let me get everyone live. I'm unmuted. I'm going to switch Gemma over so she becomes unmuted. You're always a
Blah,
disaster.
blah, blah.
We all know it. Here we are.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Let me do our advertising, etc., etc.
Okay. Oh, so I'll tell everyone about why we're late. It was my fault
It was all Gemma's
because
fault.
because like so many years ago, I tore my Achilles tendon, and it was just like the dumbest way to tear it. Like I was walking in a park, and there was a little like I'm not going to say a pothole. Like calling it a hole is really giving it too much credit. It was like a recession in the floor, and I stepped on it without realizing it was because it was like it's just grass, so I didn't see anything. And then I stepped in it, and my ankle turned, and I fell. And I kid you not, like I heard it pop, I heard it go in my skull. That was the first thing I said when I rolled onto the ground. I was like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And everyone's like, "What is going on with this lady?" Anyway, so
That's the worst.
I know, but do you know what makes me laugh is that if I'd been drunk, I wouldn't have torn it because
Really?
when you're drunk, you just let yourself go, right? You just go floppy and you're just like, oh
Mm.
boy. But because I was like completely sober, I'd just been to a yoga class, ha ha ha, and so I tried to stop myself from falling, right? And that's when I turned on the ankle. So yeah, the message is not be drunk, but also how irritating. Anyway,
Well, it's like how cats
yeah,
can get better outcomes from falls, or not just cats. I think anything. You have a better outcome from a higher fall than like a danger zone fall because once you relax a little bit.
yes, yeah. Like then you kind of like the way that you take the impact. I guess it depends on what you hit. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, my tendons suddenly started hurting after I stood up, and I was like, oh no, I've done it again. So I was like hobbling around, going to Dave, I've broken it, I've broken it. So yeah. Yoko asked, "What is Nama?" Evening to you all. Hey Yoko, what is
Hello,
Nama?
everyone. Um, Sorry, I'm like for some reason I need
Yeah,
like a
my
glass of
spine
water or
can.
something. I'm like coughing
Yeah,
up a
that's right.
storm.
You go get a glass of water. My spine cannot move around inside my body. But yes, anyway, and also I've been at the park, kind of like doing a bit of a jogging, and I was saying like the same day, like all these men are just there. Like I don't know why they bothered coming. I guess they're there with their ladies and their children, and they just furiously refreshing Twitter as if they're going to get to know what happens first. I don't know.
I
What a
hate this rattle
weird
thinking
world
noise.
we live in at the moment. No, cats are just weird though. They are like jelly,
Cats are just
right?
weird. Cats are
Like the
just
way
weird.
they like split themselves into like spaces. They like it's like Mercury, right? They just like
Yeah, they just slide into things.
yeah, yeah. Not lazy, you can't. See, you're putting art, stupid human values on the cat. We're the idiots. Like they're not lazy. They're doing it exactly as they should do it. We're the
Well,
morons.
we're not the morons. Our spines changed so we could walk upright.
No, no. I mean lazy. I'm saying lazy. We're
Oh,
not
lazy. Yeah,
there
yeah,
yet. Like
yeah, yeah.
we really should just do what cats
Our
do.
need to be constantly working is kind of dumb. So yeah, Norma, North American Beach Mahjong Association, who we should be scheduling a meeting with in the next month or two, to determine how we're going to be allocating our WRC seats in North America.
That's exciting.
It's going to be pretty exciting. We have a lot of exciting things to talk about, I think, this week. We
Yeah,
have
so I
world
mean,
events.
maybe, yeah, okay. I was going to say like background to Nama because I think lots of people would like to know how the seats were allocated for the 2020 event, which became 2022.
Let's instead talk about submarines imploding.
I
it's
think
about
that's a
equal.
yes, no, it's about you.
It's
No,
about
to be
equal.
fair, so 2020, like I don't think the American groups weren't functioning quite as well.
Well, why is this bass? You got a bass rumble coming through here.
There's something going on outside that's a bass rumble, and I'm not sure if that's just a large vehicle moving
Maybe the
past.
maybe the better way to tell the story. I don't know. I already do that, so this is attainable. So maybe we should tell this in terms of a story of year to year, which makes a little
Hmm.
bit more sense.
Yeah.
So for the 2014 WRC, we really didn't have any kind of national structure at all. There was not even an attempt of this. And so instead, what happened was I actually held the one qualifier tour. We had one online qualifier tournament that we held and commentated live. It's still online. You can find on the USPML channels our videos of us commentating those games.
Wow.
Myself and Gemma and Xkime, we did the
It was
did the
Ex-Kime, yeah, I
Xkime
remember,
joined us.
yeah.
Pardon
Gosh,
me. Yeah.
that's a long time ago.
Do they go by their proper name now? Is it okay to call them by their
Well,
proper name?
he's Nicholas in
Nicholas, yeah.
Kyokai, yeah, and his
Well, I
handle
just
is
want to make sure.
Ex-Kime. So
I
yeah,
don't want
no,
to
I think it's those the handle and the name and the persona is all
have
together.
all
So
merged now. Yeah. So Nicholas and we did that all together. We did commentary. It was actually I'm gonna hype myself and toot my own horn real friggin' hard on that. It was really interesting because what I did for that is we had a whole streaming setup, and this is 2014, mind you, where the players live streamed themselves in, and we composited it all together, so we could get like player faces and everything. For an online event, it was actually real cool that we were able to do something like that.
how did you achieve that? I don't think anyone's done that since, right?
Sure, no one's done that. No, I mean you see that in live games, like when JPML films in the studio, they have everyone
Right,
camera,
but
right?
not for online
But doing
events.
that remote
Right?
streaming, no one's done that in ever. And I think that's actually something I should probably get up and running again, because that would actually be a really cool way to do just general tournaments and streaming and stuff. But like for example, a lot of the streaming Armel does is really cool and exciting. They do a great job. Getting player faces and reactions in there would be another like level of cool that they could factor in. And like with an org like Armel, well, the thing is with something like that, if you're going to be broadcasting it seriously, you probably want a delay so no one like stands up and has no pants on or something awful like that. But like I think it does add another dimension. Anyway, I don't want to get too far down the technical. We did that. We did qualifier tournament, one qualifier event for 2014. For 2017, we were able to run a lot of qualifier events all over the country. Many people were able to apply to run a qualifier. They get like a seat assigned to them. I need to get rid of any noises that are coming from other places on my computer. And so we had this whole scheme. Pardon me again. I'm so.
I mean, 2017 as well. I remember there were a lot of seats. Like 2017,
Yeah, we had a lot of seats to give away. It was very
I
easy.
forget how many people were having for that event. Was it?
2017 was 240 was our target for 2017.
It was 240, right? And then we didn't quite hit that because there was a gun massacre.
Yeah, there was a lot of. We had like 220 something. We were very close.
Yeah,
to 240.
yeah.
And then for 2020, we had like kind of a semi-structured thing where we had a lot of people who participated and won a lot of tournaments, and we kind of took those names under advisement and tried to come up with something. And we weren't really very satisfied with that system because we didn't feel it was objective enough in the long run, and that was the challenge for us. Is we wanted a system that everyone knew how it worked in the beginning, and everyone's okay because of these events. This is what happened, and we ended up with a system where we had to kind of choose from a list of very qualified people, but the fact that there were human choices, we didn't love that.
I mean, America has a real challenge though in that it's just so big.
Yeah.
You know, it's one country, but people are very siloed in their regions, and I think that presents a really unique challenge for America.
It's hard. It's just
we talk about Europe, but in the end, if I'm in London, I can get to Paris in 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
It's like
how do you
travel around.
You can let people do like regional qualifiers. Maybe you divide America up into regions. You say there's this region, that region, stuff like that. But like, it is just hard.
Yeah. And then you have the other problem I think Americans have is that you just don't have much vacation time.
It's less guaranteed that you'll be able to go places and do things. It's harder to make it to events. It's hard to have like a drumbeat schedule of events. And again, like I want to be open about what I felt the failings were in 2020, which was that it involved any aspect of personal choice, and that's a challenge that we really want to avoid. And I want everyone to understand that, because I feel like there's always a lot of questions. How do the seats get allocated? What happens? And there's always this, there can be this undercurrent of people thinking, oh, you got to know the right people, or oh, you got to be somebody's buddy or something like that. And like everyone who has ever been involved in this that I've ever worked with, and myself included, has no desire to make it work that way. Has no desire for that to be it.
So when people could put their names forward for 2020, Dave did a call out. I did a call out for WRC's channels as well. Like, if you are in America and you want to attend, then please put your name forward. And then I think I was the one actually in the end who collected all the applications to try and keep it a little bit fairer, right?
To keep it further out.
Yeah. So I took in all the applications. I asked people to tell me why they thought. I mean, I looked at them. I didn't filter any, obviously. And then I sent it, and I sat with the panel of people, which was quite a diverse panel of people. I think where people have started to have questions is because what happened in America between 2020 and then 2022? A lot happened, right?
Yeah. There's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of fracturing. It's been a more complicated scenario.
Yes.
So the question is now,
And
how are we going to do it? And again, our goal is going to be to make 2024 the year of qualifying, and to
mhm.
come up with a plan and the structure for 2024 that is transparent, that is well documented, such that everyone can say, okay, this is how it's working. I know what the deal is. I know what I have to do if I want to try. I know how this works, and then everyone can feel good and comfortable about the scheme. And that's what everyone. I have never worked with anyone who has wanted anything other than a clear, well documented scheme everyone can feel good about. So I'm confident we can come up with that. It's been a little slower than I might like, but I'm pretty sure we can make that happen for everyone. And then again, we'll have a clear, documented procedure. Everyone will know what's what and what they have to do, and that'll be
I mean,
that.
I will say, it's difficult, I think, as well for countries to kind of tie in how they're going to do it without knowing how many seats they're going to be
Yeah,
allocated.
yeah, that's a challenge. But
I
if you
wish
at least
I
come up
knew.
with like a tier, like this is how we get everyone into the list, and the top N of this list will get the opportunity to go, and N is the number of seats we get. If we can get it to work like that, then I think we're doing pretty good.
I mean, I always think, this is my personal, like, obviously I think that, being able to, Armel's great because there's a league there, right? So you
Yeah.
can start saying, but I always think there's a good argument for picking up some wild cards. Um,
It's hard to do without a bigger tournament like
yeah,
when you look at like a league like the NFL or something. It's a little easy to be like, okay, well, yeah, the team that came in like eighth, like some of these random other teams are like, they'll have a little mini tournament, and the winner of that might get wild card, because there's still enough structure that you don't feel like it's arbitrary, or like you just
that's
pick
true.
someone you
I
like.
mean, I mean, maybe that's why, I mean, I'm very keen to have qualifiers that are, agnostic qualifiers in various locations. And I guess that's how you argue to
Mm,
get wild cards through, right?
that's a
If
little
you
bit, yeah,
want to
that's
be a
true. That's
wild
true.
card,
If it's a
then
WRC
a
seat
10
as opposed to a
qualifier.
North
Yeah.
America seat, and that's something we'll be able to talk about soon once I get some documents signed, which is not happening this week, but hopefully by next week I'll have some cool signed
I,
documents and I can talk about some cool things.
I definitely, as WRC, feeling a lot of pressure from people. They want to know how many seats there are going to be. They want to know
How
how
many
big
seats
the
are
tournament
we
is.
getting in North America,
I
by
don't
the
know
way?
how big the tournament is yet. Like,
Well,
I
let's
have
assume it's going to be 1,000 people.
no, nowhere near 1,000 people.
I mean, it
Um,
could be. Oh, there's writing. There's writings coming. Don't worry. We have some really interesting article to talk about. That's what we're going to get to. We're just babbling about
but
seats
yeah,
right
like
now.
I think I like this is
And
the
thank
idea
you.
that Tokyo is going to be big, right? But I'm going to tell you now, finding places for conventions in Tokyo is a nightmare.
But they have
They
the
just
Olympics. Don't they have the Olympic Stadium?
I don't know actually what any of that now.
I'm just saying. I'm sure those venues have large. I mean, they have to exist.
I know, but they don't have like a mice and the mice, like those kind of things that would be geared up for us. And the ones that they do have, because there's so few, they're really expensive, and we
That's
require because when you price these halls, when you go and you ask them, you're like, okay, well, this is a hall of a capacity 100 people, right?
right.
But that's always 100 people standing up.
Yeah. That I've run into that with MySpaces as well. Like, oh, it holds 800 people. I'm like, yeah, but that's like 10 mahjong tables actually. Like, that
I mean,
doesn't
it's
quite
not
work.
quite that bad, but yeah,
No.
that's basically the problem we have. Is that actually, you know, yeah, well, let's say one mahjong table is the room for 10 standing people, so that's 4 to 10, right?
Tokyo Big
Um,
Site. Why don't we go to Tokyo Big Site?
Tokyo big site, yeah, it'll be nice. And then
It's real cool
there's
looking.
I'm sure it is, but then that's like there's lots of sort of and I've put my input in. Like, I'm not actually actively looking for the venue myself. I'm just sort of at the moment like helping the local team. I put my input that I'd like to see something Japanese.
Top of the sky.
Like,
The problem with top of the sky tree is you're gonna get like one table at a time up there. Like, we
and
have
have
to
you
all
been
do
at
it
the queue at the bottom of
linearly.
the
Yeah.
sky tree? I'm not joining that bloody queue again.
Yeah, we could do it. We could
Yeah,
do it one game per hour at the top of the sky tree. I
but
mean,
you
that would be
always
a great place for the finals.
it would be a great place. But you always have this interesting clash as well, like the culture that's holding it and what they think is their
Yeah,
culture and what
yeah.
they want to promote and what we think is their culture, right? And what we want to see. And those two things don't always connect very well. Um,
I
yeah,
have to say, taking a quick look at Tokyo Big Site, I mean, this could easily hold this event, and it's a cool
yeah.
looking place. I have no idea what it would cost, but it's
Yeah,
real friggin'
a lot of
cool.
money.
It looks so cool though. I'll buy it, like the castle. It's a big it's like all pyramidy, and we can put signs on the side. It'll be great. You need to suggest this.
Don't worry, it's been suggested. There's that few locations.
It's got a water entrance. We could all come on a boat and like cruise over to it.
I mean, but there are places. I mean, because they held the rugby there, and so when the rugby was being held there, I went to like some of the fan zone, and they've got spaces. It's just really making sure it's the right space. It's going to. Luckily, we don't have to worry about public transport because it's Japan.
Bring this up.
We have to worry about tables. We have to worry about there's it's a lot. It's a solvable problem, but it's a very different problem to what we had in America and in Austria. Very different problems. But anyway, that's why I can't tell you how many people are coming to the event, and I can't tell you your quotas. It's going to be even like it's always a very vicious fight to get quota seats between the regions. It's not a comfortable period in my life, and I think this one is going to be far worse.
I'm bringing up Tokyo Big Sight. Look at this freaking place. It's great. It's got all this shit. It's got
Tokyo Big Sight for you.
It's got all these four upside down triangle looking things. How cool is this? I want to be in a geometry. It's obviously got a lot of floor space. Rent it out. Like it's got a guy on a stage who'll yell at you. I don't know. I'm hyped.
I can tell you hype with this, but yeah. Anyway, I do hope to tell people. I think countries fighting for quotas is going to be particularly vicious this time. Japan are already going like, oh, but we need lots of Japanese people. Luckily now, this time I can be like, well, if you want a lot of Japanese people, you've got to find me a big location.
They need lots of Japanese. That seems real easy. They're in Japan.
Yeah, I know, but they want. Like every time I'm like, well, you can't have more quota seats just because you're Japan. They're like, oh, but we've got a lot of Japanese people in Japan. I'm like, yeah.
Yes, that is exactly how that works.
So it's definitely, there's lots of people who are pinning hopes on going to 2025, right?
So many thoughts and prayers about this, but I fucking love this building. That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm getting out of this. What I've gotten out of this conversation is I love this. Shall I message
him now and be like, by the way, Dave is voting for Big Sight.
Dave is voting for Tokyo Big Sight because it's real cool.
You see, I was actually going for like something like the Kabuki Theater or something like that.
That's not big enough though. I don't think you could. Like, it's a beautiful building.
No, the basement under it.
Is there a website?
Have you been there?
Can I see it?
Probably. That's big enough. Or the sumo hall.
The sumo hall would be pretty cool.
They're not holding sumo in that half the time, right?
Yeah.
I know that it's holy and something to do with Shinto, but they let us play Mahjong, right?
They don't have anything about this floor map, basement level 1. This does not look like you could do anything in here.
Really? They've had stuff in there before.
Maybe it's basement level 2. Oh yeah, okay, basement level 2. This is the big open.
They've had events in there before. We could hold it there.
Maybe.
It looks like a kabuki theater. It'd be awesome.
I'd want to see pictures, but that's a valid pitch. I would not poop.
I just say I don't know yet. I've not been given the shortlist. I'm waiting for a shortlist. Like they're out there now, canvassing, looking desperately.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just want to throw that other spot. I need to worry about us.
I mean, my original suggestion was that we just do it in Mahjong parlors across Tokyo. It'd be a nightmare to move people around, but we could split people into groups. But I don't know. Like I always think that when people come, they want to
see.
They want that kind of, and like maybe this is a my thing. I've got whatever you've got now.
Oh no.
Like I think people want to see that side of Mahjong, right? That's the side that we never get to see.
See, this is the culture split.
Yeah.
This is the thing that for the people going on like a Tokyo adventure from like parlor to parlor, like keeping them organized would be a nightmare. But let's imagine you could just magically do that. That would be really exciting for people visiting Tokyo. But if you did that to me in New York and you're like, okay, Dave, instead of your New York event, what you're going to do is you're going to have to take the subway all fucking over town all day long, and it's going to be real shitty and annoying, and you're going to have to stop into places that you don't want to go, and then you play a game there, and I'm going to be like, this is...
Right. But that's how they run big events in Japan already.
They just separate them out into tiny little bars.
Yeah, the huge events are the qualifying events They are, yeah, they're spread across all of the, or not all, but lots and lots of large parlors. Because it's the only way they can get that many people playing on one day.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
don't think it'd be crazy, and I think personally I'd have been alright if they wanted to do it that way.
All right. I mean, that gives that method some legitimacy. Like if it's already
Hey,
fun.
I don't think they like that because I think now they've seen how we've been doing it in Europe and America. They like the way we're doing it, right? They like the fact there's a lot of people playing in one
I was
hall.
gonna say it's an
They
impressive image to be like, here's a
yeah,
giant hall full of people, as opposed to just
and the cameras like it as well. The
yeah,
cameras like roaming around, and then they can catch the little conversations that are happening, and like you get that energy that you can only get from collecting everyone in one room,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think that's why they got to go with the place that I found for them. Just go
And let them know.
straight to Tokyo Big Sight. Do that.
Why
Perfect.
not just the Imperial Palace? Screw it.
That's harder to rent, I'm imagining, because it's not like designed to be rented. I don't think.
See, I don't know where the Imperial family live anymore. It's kind of a shame
And the
we
basement
said
becomes underground
Tokyo.
mahjong. Oh no, underground mahjong. So this is actually super interesting. I have some thoughts we got to talk about a little later, and I'll have some
Okay,
exciting
right.
announcements for next week about stuff in North
What's our
America.
next topic of conversation?
So
Because
if you don't mind, if you don't mind me thrusting
no.
your work into the
Yeah,
public
well, actually,
eye,
I did message Kuroki about it last night. Just say, oh look, I translated this English because I wanted to share it with Dave and like the WRC rules people because it's super super interesting. And he was like, yeah, sure, talk about it with foreigners. Here's
okay.
my
So as
foreigners.
long as he's cool with us sharing
Yeah,
his article, so there's a super interesting article that Gemma translated that Kuroki wrote about. It covers a whole bunch of different topics, and I found it to be really interesting and insightful. And I wanted to
thanks, Fiona.
talk about it because I think it talks about some things that I've heard people asking, I've heard people talking about, and I think it's really interesting to see his perspective. And I think Gemma, as translator, can also provide a little bit of extra color, given that she knows what it was translated from.
Just so I mean, I want to give a bit extra background to Kuroki. So Kuroki might be not be he's not one of the he's not in he's not one of the M leaguers, but he has until recently been the I don't know he's been in the PR department, marketing department. I'm not really sure, promotions department, something like that in JPML. Um, but he has connections to Kindai Marjan, Saikyo Sen, and he's the first. So he's written a few books, but the book he wrote most recently was like what's it translated? Who will crush Mahjong World? And it's kind of it's been a I think it's kind of caused waves. Like it's really kind of unpicks what's going on in the Mahjong world now in a way that I think people have been hesitant to do until recently. And also it's kind of written about some of the scandals that have been and gone in the last 10 to 20 years. Again, I haven't really heard that kind of voice from someone so senior and who would have been instructive in some of the scandals at least. Anyway, so he's kind of now writing that, and now he, it's note in English, there's no purely Japanese. It's like Patreon, right? In that you can sign up and then you will get these people, these individuals' articles. Anyway, he's got one of those, which is why I'm not like publishing it outright because that's how he makes his money, right? He's got to make his money, but he has been just writing kind of article after article that makes you think or makes people talk in really exciting ways. But this article was one I picked up because it's a problem that we faced at 2022 WRC in that I don't think in Europe and I don't think in America there's an established way that you should or shouldn't play your all last, right? So in Japan, I'm starting to pull out from the article so Dave can maybe shortcut him through to like this. So in Japan, often you can even bring my article up. I did not proofread it yet. So
do you want me to not show it?
No, it's fine. If there's any terrible grammatical errors, please.
For the record, yeah, this is what we're showing here is a rough work that Gemma did personally for my benefit. So please be kind, and don't scream at her for not having perfect translation skills. Because she does have perfect translation skills. She just
I wouldn't
wasn't
go that
using
far,
them for me.
But anyway, so it used to be that the prize money would be. I'm trying to think how to do it. Like 1,500,000.
Well, maybe let's describe the overall problem because I think this is something that.
Yeah, well, I guess as well. This is what I think the problem comes from that though that people would be going from fourth to third, right? Because they had a small bump in the winnings. Yeah.
Well,
however,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that made for bad mahjong, right? That made for shitty to watch mahjong. They wanted people to go for first.
Right.
So
Like,
then they.
I think this is something that I've heard people talk about a lot
Mm,
over
mm,
the years. Let me like rephrase the problem a little bit, because I think that it's a very
sure.
literal title translation. Is yeah, you're in all last. You're in the title game. It's the final table, the top four. You're in all last.
Mm,
What do you do? I've had people be contentious with me about this.
mm,
Um, and I can remember a few times, and it's a question, right? Like, what do you do? Um, when you play, should you be playing to go directly for first place, right? No matter what. Should I be playing for first place? If I'm down by 30,000 points, should I just be Yakuman or bust? Should I be playing to advance my place? Should I be playing, okay, well, if I'm in fourth, if I can get into third, maybe that's good enough and I should do that. Should I be playing to just end the game? If I'm in second, do I win 1,000 point hand that does nothing for me because I want to lock in second? Things like
mm,
that. How should you behave? And people have different opinions on this. And I think that what we're talking about is how, at least within the Japanese professional world, generally speaking, people will try to go for first
mm.
and not win, if I'm understanding properly.
These are title matches. I want to really stress here, because the context is important, right?
Right,
If you are in a qualifier and the points are what matters, then going from fourth to third and getting yourself into the cutoff is
right.
that. So really, I guess to make it easier is like, what are your victory conditions? If you're on the final table, your victory conditions are walking away with the title.
Mm. And that's only going to the first place player at that
Yes,
point.
yes. So, but if you are in a qualifying and you need to get second to make it to the next to progress, then second is your victory. So going from fourth to second or third to second, there is no shame in that.
Pardon me.
Right?
Yeah,
It's
like
not that
even
not,
locking in second is a reasonable play when second is your win
yeah,
condition.
because that is a marathon, right? But the problem comes at the final table on your all last hand.
Yeah.
And I think it's a problem because, of course, in European mahjong, you want to stand on the podium. The second looks better than the third if I'm standing on the podium, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, I can speak. I'll speak with some anonymity because it's not about the individual people. But like, in many years ago, I was at a tournament and I was on the last table, and I was building a hand. I played for a full flush because that was what I needed to get into first place. I think I was in third or fourth place, and that's what I needed. And then I ended up dealing into someone else and putting them into first place. And there was some scuffle amongst people. Why would you do that? There was some grump. But at the end of the day, I was playing for my win condition. My justification for that was I played for my win condition, and I wasn't about to fold out when I was already in fourth place on the final table, and I had the opportunity to get into first. I wasn't just being reckless and stupid. I had a hand ready that could have won me. And that was I mean, again, you can debate whether that's right or not, but that's how I felt, and some other people felt that it wasn't the best thing because I dealt into someone and then made them win. I don't know. That's a hard thing to judge. But what was the point of that? I just like talking about my old games that I played. So this article is discussing how there are differences in the prize value, and by having hearing that this is about specifically title matches helps me understand a little more why that was really important. Because this scheme with the differences in the prize value means that me going from fourth to third with a little tiny hand gets me a bigger prize.
Yeah, it doubles your money.
Yeah, and so because of that, I'm tempted to do that as a player. It's good for me. But I think the thing that I find very interesting about this article as a whole, and there's a lot more to it, don't worry, is that it's very focused on the not player. It's very focused on the observer, the viewer. What do they want to see? For me as the player, in many ways, the idea that the person in fourth is going to go for a tiny hand to get them from fourth into third is a pretty normal game situation for me as a player. I should be aware that that might happen. I should know that's what's going on, and I should be playing accordingly. And I don't think for me as a player that ruins the hand. The real challenge here is that for the observers, the viewers, the commentators, the people watching this game are going to think that's a boring and shitty conclusion to the big title match. And there's a lot of very interesting focus in that throughout this article in what are the people watching this wanting to see in Mahjong as a spectator sport, as opposed to the more inner focused what makes the best Mahjong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to add some more background. I mean, when I first became a professional, I heard another professional say, I would rather that Mahjong died than we had to reform for the modern world. I was like, wow, okay. That's a hot take. Anyway, but I think that's been like it's and I know you love the word ossify because I used it last week. I'm trying to find another word like that. But Mahjong has been like reluctant to kind of move and change. There's been a lot of, and I think Kuroki picks us up like, why else is the scoring system as dumb as it is, and I will say that I found it just in WRC rules, and this is not in the others, just in WRC rules, and I was like, we can just round up to Mangan, like just round it up, and then was like, no, that's not tradition, and I'm like, tradition, you've been playing for 2 years, I'm not taking away like something that you've been playing for the last 7 decades.
300 points, and it's not like the difference between 7,700 and 8,000 makes this like vital. Sometimes a tiny thing makes a really important strategic difference.
Yeah.
That does not.
No. It's just an unnecessary added. Anyway, but there's a lot of unnecessary added complications in Mahjong, and every time you try to change something, Gemma's just thinking about the win seat selection now that she is caught on a hill for. And I'm like, oh no, I am that person. I'm the twat holding back Mahjong.
I'll give you credit for that, because all of that happens like once at the beginning of a game, and you really could. And if I had like a phone app that just went beep boop beep, like it wouldn't change Mahjong.
No, God, I feel bad now. I've kind of like managed. I don't know, like 2 parts of Gemma have managed to like collide.
But it's, as a game like Mahjong is a tradition. It's about playing with the tiles and sitting in the seat and touching it. Like there is a balance. There is a
balance. Yeah.
There's value in those things. I don't think these things all need to be thrown out.
I'm not going to people tell me that the way the WRC recommends. There are 2 seat selection methods in WRC rules. Just choose the other one if you don't like the other one of them. But the way that we do it with the big sort of boom 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 and everything moving around, it is bullshit. I like it.
It is a little bullshit.
I don't know. Like, I like the ritual, but then so this is the problem and do you know what? If you're on a TV table, so I was on a couple of TV tables in 2019, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And you do that draw before the cameras start rolling, because it's not fun to watch, is it?
No, it's not. But because it happens at the very beginning of the game, it doesn't really impede the fun of watching either. Like you just do whatever you do, and then everyone sits down, and then you start watching. Like it's not something happening repeatedly every hand or every round or something like that. So,
but this is a really Japanese problem as well, because there are some people streaming. I know Richinomi is streaming. I know that in Germany they've done some streaming. I think France of Flair has some streaming at the moment. I know Luke De Bruin was at WRC. He was practicing his streaming.
Yeah, he was working on streaming stuff.
He's been working on that for a while now. We don't have a big audience.
No.
Even if we had that audience, it would only be people who probably already are on the circuit, right?
This is a conversation I've had with people as well, which is like I've talked to a lot of people who have this idea that like, oh, if we stream a lot of Mahjong, everyone will come to love Mahjong. And I'm kind of like, my opinion is just, that's not what you're going to do. Your stream will probably not attract people who have never played Mahjong before in any meaningful number and have them be like, wow, this is so cool, I want to play this game. It will be great for people who already do know how to play Mahjong.
Mm.
Like, that's your audience, and God bless you. Do stream, like, do produce. Would never say no, but just be aware what you're going to get is people who already know Mahjong and who want to watch more Mahjong. And again, those are wonderful people. I love them all. But like, it's not an audience builder.
So EMP says the thing is that when only first match, you have such a long slog in Civ 3 and 4. Yeah, I mean, I guess that depends on your perspective, right? Because, and this maybe is from the viewer. Yes, if by Civ 3 or 4 you can no longer be in first, then yeah, it kind of sucks, right? But if you're an audience, if you're a viewer and you're watching your M League or your JPR stream or whatever, then you're probably only watching first and second battle it out, and that's fun to you, right?
Yeah, I feel like it only becomes unfun if first has gone so far. If first is like 60K and everyone else is at 10 or 15K, and then you're kind of like, oh.
Well, I mean, that's partly why lots of rule sets start removing some of the more, lucky aspects.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you when you don't have the ability to get like, Tanya reach Dora 6, like when that stops happening, You
Yeah, or
stop being able to magically. And I'll say when I was in Tokyo and playing at the dojo, and I had 2 nights there that were A rules. And I know people like or don't like A rules. You might have your own opinion on A rules, but having so much less value on the table
Yeah.
meant that those games were knifey games, and no one was
Yeah.
ever really out of reach. No one was ever really safe.
No.
Even though I felt much more internally desperate, like, good lord, I need to be able to build a good hand here, and I need the material to come. Like, I really need to make this happen. But there was never any point in any of those games where I was just like, I'm done. Like they were up 30,000 and I'm out. Like that just never happened. No one ever got that far away.
So out of curiosity, the EMA rules used to allow double and triple Yakuman into one European championship where a gentleman, through no fault of his own, got a triple Yakuman.
It was all his fault.
But basically, the rest of the, I don't know, day and a half, pointless. He stayed at the top of the rankings and no one could do anything.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like... That
destroyed an entire tournament. So when people ask me, well, this is why, this is why we piss about and take away the things you love.
Well, it's why, like... It's why you should realize two important things about rules. Because I can never say just one thing. It's 2 important things about rules. And one is that the rules... The goal of the rules are to create an enjoyable, like this is a game, right? The goal of the rules are to create an enjoyable experience, not to meet some weird standard of correctness as established by God knows who, God knows when. And the second thing is the rules are eminently changeable. Change any rule. We could make 1-pins into wild cards if we wanted to. The rules are malleable. And the point is to find the rules that are the best. And like, yeah, the triple Yakuman sucks. I mean, good for them for winning such an awesome hand. That must be thrilling for them. But that sucks because now, like, the tournament's just over. Just end it. That's another reason why I like busting. I don't like games. I don't like tournaments you can't bust because you end up with these events where someone's like, oh well, I was plus 100 on that table, and it's like, then what's the point?
I will say though, like, and this is another kind of. I get a lot of kind of pushback on WRC rules. But I think a lot of that pushback comes from the thing. People are used to playing the ladder or Mahjong Soul, or they're used to grinding on Tenhou. But those games are played discreetly, right? That game happens, and then it's over, and then you move on to the next game, right? Whereas the WRC rules are a competition rule set written for a title match. And fundamentally, they will differ from a game that you are going to hop onto the table and hop off.
And so games that are going to be evaluated in mass aggregate. Like if you're playing Tenhou or Mahjong Soul, that game is 1 out of the 1,000 games you could play in a few months, And so yeah, there might be an outlier game where something crazy happens, but it really does get smoothed out very aggressively by the sheer number of games. But in in 20 games or less, let's say, in any event 20 games or less, you want to minimize the possibility of like wild outlier games.
Yeah. But so final, when you catch the golden snitch, that's exactly what it is. Quidditch is the worst game written in a book ever. Blitzball, and I thought Blitzball was pretty bad, but okay, it was like everything about Quidditch. It's just written to make Harry Potter look good. Now, I am not writing a rule set. Me and Sylvain, that's not just me. I am, I'm not, kind of navigating this rule set to make Harry Potter look good. So every time someone complains that they can't win quadruple Yakuman, I'm just shut up, Harry Potter. No one likes you anyway. You should have been bullied harder.
Took a 3rd place because that other player is really bad and busted. That does suck. That is a bad feeling. And I think that's a fair thing to balance. My general pro bust position comes from having been at certain events where someone repeatedly just hoovered plus 80 to plus 100 games out of tables where someone just decided, oh no, I'm doing poorly, I better play desperately. Oh no, I'm doing even worse now, I better play more desperately. And you get someone in that death spiral and they just hand all their points over to someone, and because there's no limit as to how far that can go, it just becomes, who exploited the bad player at their table the hardest, and that's not a fun game to play.
So again, I will say that, WRC rules were not written with the mindset that I will have bad players.
That's true. That's why WRC doesn't have bust. WRC doesn't, we've talked about this before.
I have good players at the WRC event. Now, if someone said to me, is this the best rule set for you to take through other things? I think it needs some modifications.
Oh.
Not entirely. Well, there's a whole modification document, um, depending on whether you want to, be more casual or whether you want, and that's why we publish modifications. I don't think I've kind of, I mean, maybe this is something for the future, is to kind of whittle that down as a suggested mode for, smaller events where you're going to have a more varied skill set, let's say.
I will say, Byronel, it does feel good to like navigate that successfully. To like feel like, okay, well, there's this like Titanic and iceberg battle going on over here, and I'm just like cruising through, just like getting into second, not screwing up, getting my points out.
Do you know what?
Hey, like,
Yeah,
it's a good
because you know,
feeling.
really, I think it always happens worse when there's two good players and two bad players.
Yes, that's. Oh, I hate
And then there's definitely, and like, you have to be sat on the right of a bad player. If you don't have a bad player to your left, but the other good player, oh no, it's going to go wrong.
that. Well,
Counterpoint in Prague, I was at Aquasay. I was on a table where there was a Yakuman Ron in East 1. The Ron player picked themselves back up and was challenging for Yakuman Ron. I mean, yeah, you should be able to pick yourself back up from that. But that's why Yakuman is okay. A triple Yakuman.
Oh no, you're right. You're right about busting. Busting would rob them of that chance. I think that's true. I would say that's a quality of good play though. That player, they lost a lot of points, but they're a good player, a solid player. They were able to make their points back to get something going on. I do agree. It seems a little crappy if one hand could zonk you out of the game entirely.
So I probably if you were if you're running a tournament where you're aggregating your points, I would not put busting or Toby in.
You don't think so?
Personally. I mean, it depends. I mean, I'd have to look at the overall thing. It's not to say I'd never do it, and that's the thing, like it's holistic, and there are these different levers that you can pull and push to
feel.
And that's what definitely as we were coming out of 2014, that was a long conversation. How do we want these events to look? How do I want the players to feel? Yeah. Like what kind of experiences are we going to have? And that's why we've made some decisions that I would say are anti-competitive. For example, we have a Japanese player sitting on each table for the qualifying round, right? We make sure that there's one Japanese person on each table, and to spread out the nationalities as much as possible, right?
Sure, we could say one professional player on each table is maybe it's not about not about one's heritage.
No, that's true. Okay, we've only had professional Japanese players, so maybe a bit lax on that.
Professional Japanese.
So we've had one professional player. Now that gives those professional players an enormous advantage. But that's the experience that people come to WRC. They want to be able to sit and play as many professional players as possible, right? So I'm like, okay, well, actually, this is compromising the competition. However, we need to make sure that people are getting the experience that they want, that they need, they demand.
I think, Caro, you're right, and I think it also depends on what the environment is. So, for example, I'd feel much more comfortable with an A rules tournament that had busting, because I feel like to bust in A rules, you have to really.
Yeah. You're making
some
effort to bust an A rules.
I still fundamentally don't like the fact that, as mentioned before, like if someone just damas a Kokoshi and I deal in, and by that's 32,000 points, it's over. I think that sucks. That's entirely no fun. I agree. That's a terrible outcome for a game. No fun at all. But like if you're playing with like standard Dora, Uradora, Condor, and Red 5s, then busting is going to happen. Busting's pretty likely.
Yeah.
Like it's very likely, and then you want to be careful because you're right. You don't want people being like, "Well, I started playing my Hanchan, and then 2 hands in it ended because someone busted because they dealt into like 2 dealer Mangans in a row," and it's like, oh, okay, like that's not fun. So you're right. You want people to feel like they got value out of the games they got to play. We're talking about a lot of cool stuff, but I also want to make sure to get through this article because we just had this up on like the very first.
Do you really want to go through the whole article?
Well, there's a few things I want to talk about in this article. So we talk about why do we win and when do we win?
Do we need to have the article up though?
I don't know. I guess we don't need to have the article up.
No.
Fine.
I don't know. It's just like a wall of text. Like I feel like we're in a meeting, and then you're just talking through a PowerPoint, and everyone's like, "Oh, geez, how long is it going to take?"
Yeah. Like Damakokshi is a great. I mean, it's a great hand to win, and it's an incredibly hard hand to defend against. Especially if it happens kind of quick. It's really hard. You don't know what they need. There's 13 options that they could need, and maybe they need all 13 at once. And having to hold on to all 13 of those tiles means insta folding. Like, let's text Mark. I can see about.
I know. Dave has been coy with his cat.
Koi. I was playing Koi last night actually.
Look, you should all feel lucky that I'm actually talking about Mahjong because I really only want to talk about Clive.
Oh no, we can't talk about Clive.
Really?
All right, so we talk about what they do, and we talk about how he talks about how what they did to change this was they made the prize money equal for second, third, and fourth.
Yeah.
So now, like at the last table, like you don't actually care.
You're only going to play for first. That's
yeah, everyone's going to play for
first. It is achievable, yeah.
And so then he says, yeah, the accepted knowledge is claiming a win to be ranked second or below is basically, and so this is why they don't like it, because basically if second, third, and fourth are all getting the same prize, and only first place gets a big prize, and I'm in third, and I win a 3,000 point hand or 3,900 point hand to get to second, I've done nothing for myself now. I've improved myself in no way unless I really consider saying I was second versus third to be viable bragging rights, which I think generally they don't. I don't get the title. It doesn't matter. And not only have I done nothing for myself, I've taken the player already in second and already in fourth and said, and you don't get to play either. Yeah. And that's why it's considered kind of
isn't it?
Because in a title match like that, not only have I said, I can't do this, and I'm out, basically, which, I mean, I have the right to fold if I want to, but I've also told the other two players, you now must fold. I have folded for you, ha ha ha, you don't get to win. And maybe this goes with my own kind of game ethics. Like, I feel like it's good for me to make a move that helps me. So if I, again, like in my example earlier, if I'm in third and I have a hand that gets me ready for first, that will get me into first, and I play that hand forward, I attack, and I deal into fourth, and nothing happens at the end of the game, yeah, I've gypped second out of their chance to go for first, but I did it going for first myself. I was making the move.
Don't use that word. Don't use that word, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's
yeah. No, I just picked you up on this. Sorry. Right.
So I've cheated second. I've cheated second out of their chance to win first, sure, but I've done it by trying to make a move that was good for me, by trying to get first myself in a credible way. So no one can really be mad at me for trying to do that, right? I was doing something that made sense. But if I do win this hand to spitefully try to shut down second and fourth, like if I win a hand I know isn't going to get me into first, and I just that's mean. That's like just mean-spirited play where I'm not trying to improve myself. I'm trying to knock someone else down, and that's, I think, poor sportsmanship in that scenario.
And I think it's impressive to me that it's impressive. I mean, I shouldn't be impressed by them anymore. They're smart people, but that they've built a system that generates the outcome that they want. They want an outcome where people are fighting the first, and I think sometimes there's a real struggle for us to do that in the West.
I wonder.
Sometimes we just don't. We don't think fast enough. We're hesitant to move because part of the problem is, there's so few events, right? You can't trial something because as an organizer, you're holding your event for the year. You don't want to do anything too crazy because people do crazy things and it doesn't work out, and that sucks. And people obviously pay a lot of money. Whereas in Japan, these people have come from down the road, so if it goes a little bit wrong, it's not too bad.
Yeah, and you can have another event next month. Like you have plenty of time to work on.
Oh, sorry, I'm scratching the table. It's my fault by now. Sorry. But I think and for the EMA rankings, actually, if I can get from fourth to second or third to second, that's good. So I should do that, right? Does it matter because no one's watching them?
Yeah, but I feel like you can say, I don't know, again, maybe this is my game ethics. I feel like you can still say you were doing something with the purpose of improving your standing in some way. You weren't just doing it to, like, strike someone else down or muck around.
But it's a problem for the WRC in particular because that is broadcast. And so before, the defined table in 2022, there were these panicked conversations about would the Western players, Valentine and Anna, whether they would, try to lock in a second rather than go for first. So I really wasn't sure how to have that conversation or how that conversation would go. I had that conversation. Do you want? They played perfectly. I mean, they're great players anyway, so they were like, right, yeah, I want to win. Actually, they're both pretty hungry for the title, the top spot. Anyways, that was fine. It didn't. But if someone had turned around to me and said, "Well, why? I'm quite happy being second of the WRC. Like, look at all the people I beat. I just didn't beat one, and that would have been a difficult conversation for me to have. I wouldn't have known really how to handle that. Thank you, Valentine and Anna, if you're watching.
This is why I really like my I really like that jackets idea. I wish it was more viable to actually do.
But that's something certainly for 2025. I'm like, well, how let's
You're
assume
off to work.
that.
All right. Good luck,
Hi,
Yoko. Have a good
Yoko.
day.
Like we're going to have a lot. I think we need to sort of again work out. Well, it's difficult. So we don't have any prize money for WRC by design, and every now and then
Okay.
people have suggested to me, each organizer, not each organizer, but
45.
we've had people say, well, why don't we just put money on the table and see what, we can do a lot. The money gives you options. It gives you another lever, right? It allows you to direct human behavior. Just don't think we can do it for WRC.
No, it's a challenge.
I know that I'm against money in games, but I just don't think we have the resources and
it's a
the
difficult thing to
legal
work in
energy.
properly. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that you have to get together.
Yeah,
for
because
that.
we'd want to move it each time. We still want to move it to different. If we were going to hold it in one jurisdiction all the time, I'd be like, sure, we can do it then, because we'll get the lawyers and we'll work out what we can and can't do. But what I don't want to do is end up we can only hold it
in 2 places or something.
Like 3 or 4 places. Partly because we can afford the lawyers there, or other places it's just not possible. There's plenty of states in America where it would just not be possible. Full stop.
Yeah. No, it's a challenge.
Sorry. Period.
There are things you can say full stop. It's fine. It's like a telegram.
Oh really? Is that you only have full stops and telegrams?
Full stops or telegrams. Yeah. Stop in general is a telegram thing.
Stop. Okay. Yeah.
What was I thinking? Oh, so then I think the next part, and I want to make sure we actually get through this because I think there are lots of interesting things. Next, we're talking about North seat advantage. Why is North awesome? And I always love being seated North. First of all, because my first dealership comes after I've had a chance to understand how the table works.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the first dealership. But we talk about here is the North seat advantage is because you're the last dealer, and if you're the last dealer, that means you have many more rights in that last hand as we discussed. So if it's the last hand,
if it's a gariyame, right? If you're top, then you end the game. That's the advantage for North.
That's only one of the two that's discussed.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But that's one of the key advantages.
One of the keys, yeah. If you're winning and you win the last and you win in South 4 and you're the game just ends and you're the dealer, you don't continue holding the deal. But WRC got rid of that to equalize the risk. But the benefit that I have is the other benefit that I get is if I'm losing, because I'm the dealer and winning allows me to continue. I can now win a tiny cheap hand because I pull myself even closer to winning and we get another hand. So it's a huge benefit that it lets me play much more aggressively in that position.
So that rule that the pros play by, that if you are in last, you can not win a small hand, no longer applies.
Right.
Because you're playing for the continuation. And therefore it's a victory condition. And therefore you can do it.
If you want to phrase it a little differently, I'd say the rule that the pros play by is if you're not in first, you shouldn't end the game without getting into first.
Right, yeah.
And since now me winning a tiny hand doesn't end the game, I'm free to do that as much as I want. Which is an exciting benefit for me. And the interesting thing that he also mentioned is that some players will then deliberately feed me because my hand is terrible, right? It's South 4th and my hand is terrible. If the dealer wins a few points, that's kind of okay because at least I get another shot at the big hand I need. And so this becomes like this weird strategic quirk that kind of spins the game a little bit as to what's going on. And so he talks about how they actually seat players specifically based on their place in the rankings.
Yeah, do you know what? I was gonna go to Taki and ask that question and get more information on this system. So this is Taki, who's one of the biggest players. Is he still put in Kazan?
Yeah,
he's an M Liga. So anyway, so he came up with a system that would seat you depending on your ranking, as your starting seat.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of that, obviously, because I'd never made a final table and a title match that really matters. But that was fascinating to me, and I really want to flesh that out because I think that it would be something I want to bring to the West.
Yeah, I like this a lot, that the North player is a player first in rankings. And that means...
I was hoping that I was going to flesh it out, and I was actually just going to publish it, because I was just...
So we can just skim over this if you want to.
I just think, it might be,
See,
I don't have enough information. I'd really like, because he's kind of... The way that Kuroki presented it is everyone seems to know what it is, and I'm like, What? No one told me.
Yeah. He's like, oh, this system was made. I'm like, wait, what system is this? I don't know what this system is.
I'd love to, because this is a system. So there, basically, as Dave says, the system is to kind of reduce the advantage that the North player has as you go into your final hand.
Yeah. Aqualta mentions with no Agariama and a time limited Hanshan, you want to start east, and that's a particular trauma that I've seen people have. Where, and it's not doesn't come from nowhere, but when you have these time limited games and when people aren't very fast at playing their Hanshan, then there's a strong chance that if you start north, you're only going to get one dealership, and that kind of sucks. And that's a quirk of play environments, I think, where people are just a little bit slower or a little bit less experienced, or the time limit maybe is really short depending on what's going on.
Yeah, time limits suck. I mean, I think WRC we use 90 minutes still. And most hands, not everyone's table will finish, but most tables do finish.
Mostly finish.
If you're in an EMA event, just assume your table will not finish.
Yeah, and in that case, you want to be closer to starting east because then you have a better chance of getting your second dealership.
Yeah, so in the EMA event, I definitely think south is the way to be.
Yeah, at least one off. I don't like that that's a thing to worry about, but I'm not going to pretend it's not a real thing to worry about. Like, it does happen, and it's a challenge of dealing with just events where people are slower. It's funny because at the again in Japan at the dojo, I think it's 50-minute games, and I don't think I was in a game that didn't finish that whole time.
Oh, I know. Well, first of all,
everyone's
they've got automatic
fast.
tables.
They got auto tables, and everyone's super fast. Like it's.
See, but this is one thing that I proposed it at one point. This is a long time ago, and this is where I say I think Westerners are a little bit. Again, they're stuck on a tradition which isn't there, which is baffling to me. But I suggested we just take away continuations.
So what if the dealer wins? It still passes?
Yeah.
What do I think about that?
I think only in the context of these European games where we have to play in strict timetables, and I would like to say 50% of games probably don't finish.
I would argue
depending on the context. So there's some regions where they're playing very fast for whatever reason. There's other regions where they still play very, very slow. I have been to tournaments where I haven't managed to finish a full Hanshan at all.
Now here's my question. You didn't finish the Hanshan at all. Did you finish 8 hands? Was it because people were continuing?
We did finish 8 hands, yeah.
Okay. Because I don't innately hate the idea that there's no continuances. I feel like it impacts all players equally. I feel like if you know at the beginning of the tournament, that's it's not sprung on you at random. It's not like a random game event that you're going to be like, oh, wait, what? Dealer winner and to repeat, but dealer.
Yeah, see, that was my compromise suggestion.
That's the middle ground. Yeah, the middle ground.
That was my compromise suggestion. I was like, well, 10-5 doesn't cut it then.
Maybe.
And I think that would be a great compromise, personally.
I think that's like a reasonable tunable knob because it does impact all the players evenly.
And I think that, as I said, if you know that you're going to be in a lower skill, even let's not say lower skill, an environment post-COVID where people are returning to in real life play and may not be as fast or as sharp as they were.
Lower skill.
We've got a. Well, I'd like to say lower experience. Right?
I would just say lower speed because I think speed is independent of skill. There are some players who are excellent that I've met. They just take a long time to make every decision, but they're excellent players. They're just not super speedy.
And then we've got a lot. I think we can assume we're going to have a lot of people coming from Mahjong Seoul, where they're used to the thing telling them what they can and can't. Anyway, I think that would be a great compromise to make sure that people get through those Hanshan, and people are very upset when they don't finish a Hanshan.
I think it's good. Again, putting my tournament organizer hat on, I think it's excellent for the tournament because an unfinished Hanshan sucks. Because that means that the experience and the skill contest of that game was different. Yeah. Different number of hands, different structure, different things happen. If everyone, again, if you say no continuances no matter what, and everyone gets the same 2 go-arounds in every game, we have a more consistent spread of games for our tournament. They're consistently complete. Everyone's done the same thing in every game. Now, you might not love the fact that you don't get your dealer continuances, and I can understand why that might be a little frustrating, but by making the games more even, you've made the tournament more fair. That's what I think.
Yeah, exactly, Bernard. I agree. Removing the repeats is less important than getting to be dealer. It will make every dealership a freaking nightmare for the dealer.
Oh, yes. It just becomes like, this is it. This is the one.
I'm not going to tell you that by doing this won't create other nightmarish problems. I'm not telling you, and it might very well do, and it might be that we have to switch it back.
It changes the strategic texture of some things, sure,
Yeah.
but from my tournament organizer side, making everyone's games more consistent makes me feel better about my event and the results of the event, rather than someone just being like, oh, well, I probably would have done better at this event, except for 3 of my 5 tables, I was at someone who took 30 seconds for every discard, and thusly I only got 1 dealership amongst all of them. And it's like, that can happen to people.
Yeah.
And maybe this is another thing that I feel like this eliminates a little bit, because if I'm fast, but the other people at my table are slow, I will have an incomplete game. It's not my fault. I didn't make my game be incomplete. It just happened to me, and that's usually also a bad feeling. And if I can get rid of that bad feeling by saying, no, I didn't, we had complete games. And some players were a little slower than others, and it's fine. Like, again, that I think it just helps. I think it helps.
I agree. I mean, obviously the dream is that we could just have timers that go on and that's why for WRC, we have this infinite timer for the final table. Because you don't want that situation. Hi, Siri.
Hello, Siri.
The other interesting thing for WRC, at least, is, again, a lot of pushback was that it was my choice. This was one of the rare choices that I made. Sylvan said to me, what's the decision? And I made the decision to remove the aborted draws. And the reason for that was to reduce the time wastage and to make sure that people would get all of their hands in. Unpopular decision, for sure. Although I will say, throwing 4 of the same wins is fucking bullshit, supernatural nonsense. The other ones, like if you get absolute nonsense and you're just having to go for Kokshi, that feels bad.
Kyushu Kyuhai is a rough thing, but again, I still feel like Kyushu Kyuhai is still a good enough start on Kokshi that it's not that awful.
No, except that was the kind of thing in my head. I was definitely in 2 minds, but I think we made the right decision. I don't think abortive draws add to the game.
What other abortive draws? Okay, so there's 3 that I can think of. There's the same 4 wins. The same 4 wins, in my opinion, does not add to the game at all. It's dumb and silly and forces a redeal for no good reason. So honestly, getting rid of that, I think it's fine. Whatever.
I mean, and the reason for that is just supernatural, right?
Yeah, it's silly. And if you're hanging out with friends and you don't care about wasting the time, it's fine. But in a tournament scenario where you have a timer, don't do that. That's just dumb.
Yeah.
There's all 4 players in reach. Is sometimes an abortive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that would be abortive, because I feel like that's a valid game state you can now just play out. It's not super fun or exciting, I guess.
I mean, I think it's just it allows the player who's not in reach to make a decision, and I think people. I don't know. Do you know what? I have not really thought too much about why that one's an abortive draw or not. I suspect it's just because people just don't like drawing and discarding, and they were like, let's just make it an abortive draw, and then make an exciting mechanism for the 4th player to make a decision or not.
To kind of decide. But turning that into we play it out and see who wins doesn't seem too destructive to the game to me. And okay. Then we have, is 4 cons an abortive draw? 4 cons not by the same player is an abort?
Yeah, 4 cons, yes, it's an abortive draw. You run out of dead wall, basically, right?
You don't run out of it. You've used all the. You can never make more than 4 regardless.
Yes, exactly.
So like the 4th con being an abortive draw, that seems again like I don't feel like the game is damaged by removing this. It's not a common situation by any means.
Go forward, which is not exciting. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a cultural issue. I do kind of like the power when I'm the only one not in reach. Well, I can reach. I can't reach.
You can also fold, and they sure can't. Like.
But it's difficult to fold against 3 players.
Yeah, I would be folding for sure. I'd happily be out of that one. I'm like, no. So I don't feel like 4th con is also something that matters that much. It never happens.
What was the other one?
Kyushu
Kyuhai. Yeah.
Kyushu Kyuhai makes some sense to me. I've been dealt a hand I can't really play. So from the very beginning, this hand might just be pointless to me. That's the only one I could see being at all valid.
And do you know what the problem, at least from what it used to be? I think, is it still in the European rules? I'm not sure. It goes along how little I've played the European rules recently. But you see people, they're counting. And then they'd be like, I can't call it. You're like, oh, you got 8 then, have you?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I know you're in a bad spot, huh? Like,
I really don't like Kyushu Kyuhai for that reason. Like, unless people can just look at their hand and see it, or count in their head, or outside of a computer environment, it's really
But like,
nightmarish.
if you think about what Kyushu Kyuhai really means, which I find to be very, very interesting, right?
Mm.
If you have 9 different terminals and honors in your hand, right? You have
Mm.
one of 2 situations. One situation is you have 9 unique ones and at least one pair.
Mm.
And one situation is you have 9 distinct ones and no pair, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the situation where you have 9 distinct and at least one pair, you are now 3 Shanten on a Yakuman.
Yeah.
That's real close.
It is, but you might
And
not need that Yakuma.
in the
Anyway.
situation where you have one pair, you are, I think, what you're still 3 Shanten on that Yakuman.
Mm.
And in the one where you don't have the pair, you uh have a huge array of tiles you could possibly draw to get ready because you have like 13 tiles that can improve your hand. And there's at least 30 tiles out on the board that will get you closer to that Yakuman for the first step.
Mm.
And so it's like, like is this really bad? You are being kind of like forced into playing Kokoshi, which isn't that fun.
Mm-hmm.
But you also, I don't feel that bad about it.
No, and I think it's a simplification, and I think we need to simplify at the moment. I mean, there's other things I've done. So you can what was it? The Yakuman robbing a can one, the Koshi. A closed can. You could rob a closed can for a Koshi.
Yeah.
I took that out because it's bullshit.
Oh no.
Yeah, the thing is, it happens so rarely, and even if it did happen, I know exactly what the player will do. They'll put their hand up and they'll be like, "Can I rob that closed can?" And then they'll get the rule book out, and it's just a fiasco. I think we need to be in an era of simplification at the moment.
I agree that it simplifies. I still just love the prospect of doing it. It's
We
so
all love it.
beautiful.
We all love the prospect. But then that's the thing. I think it's right to have this drive to simplify, and we can always add the complications back in.
Well, that's the thing. I think what's good about doing the simplification is exactly that. Exactly what you said. We take it out. We see if we care. You know, and if we're sitting there being like, man, I sure do miss that thing that was there, and then we can put it back because the rules are malleable. But if we don't, if we find that it's just like, oh, okay, whatever, like, then yeah, maybe some days I want to play classic old-fashioned Mahjong with lots of weird old rules, and maybe in the tournament we just don't.
I mean, and not to toot WRC's horn,
do it,
but I will now, and that's why WRC rules are so good, because you can feed into them, like, and they change. I don't think there has been a recent change from any other major rule set. I mean, I know Psycho-Isen did recently, but that, we've had updates. We can have updates whenever we want. Just as an off chance, if anyone's got any suggestions, definitely send them through the website at the moment, because we are, after my trip to Japan, we are definitely an open window at the moment to reconsider a lot of things. A lot of things are moving around, and if there's something that's really been bugging you, just put it in now. I'm not saying you can have it, but I would definitely be considering having it right now. So there's some times when there's like I'm more and less. At the moment, I'm more interested in changing the rules, and maybe as I approach 2025, I'll become less interested.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's keep going through this article.
There's been a lot of Mahjong talk and no Clive talk. No Clive talk.
I'm keeping Clive out of this. I don't want spoilers. I haven't even started this business.
Oh really? Oh, Dave, I really need to talk to you about it. It's not about. I don't want to talk about the story. I just want to talk about the corridors.
I mean, I've just been playing Final Fantasy 13. It's fine.
Oh, you'll be all right then. You're fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Agatayame and dealer privilege, so the dealer can end the game. Apparently people don't love this, and he talked about how it kind of works best for Mahjong parlors and places that want to play as many games as possible, so you can just end it. Yeah, dealer first dealer.
But that's a commercial decision, right?
Yeah, it's a commercial decision. You don't have to watch tables already been decided. They talked about timers and other things.
You hear my child screaming? He's perfectly fine. He's with his dad. Just doesn't want to sleep, apparently.
Can you put the article back on screen, please? Do you want to put the article back on screen?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I mean, I'm flipping through it back and forth to keep our options. So hold on. Here we go. Go back here. Let's talk about Agatayame and how Agatayame worked.
If I find a comma out of place, though, I'm going to be mortified.
It's been a difficult decision. And apparently, there's been a lot of back and forth about timers, a lot of different options. So that's kind of what we talk about here. Are some of the options that we're seeing for that. His idea with the timer was, football and basketball all have time restrictions. So like, there's a clock, and you got to play to the clock. And Mahjong's one of the weird games that doesn't really, in these situations, have time restrictions, at least in Japanese events.
And the final table of WRC, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but it just suck, right? Just imagine you lost because of a gong.
It really does. It really does suck to have a championship title event be decided based on a timer.
You're okay on the qualifying rounds, right? Because that's how you've got to play a lot of games, because everyone's motivated to play a lot of games, because that's going to be the best way to build the skill there.
You've got to shuffle them through the maze for the qualifying.
Yeah, but when you get to the cutoff, you're going to play 2 Hanshan for each level. I mean, I know. Sorry, I'm only talking about WRC. Title matches in Japan probably play 3 or 4, right? But in WRC you only get to play 2. To lose to a timer.
That's a terrible feeling. That's like the worst. That's the worst. You
So,
don't want those games to be incomplete. You want those games to be the full contest all the way through.
But we do place the timer for best 32, best 16. Best 8, we've got the auto tables. So that's not a problem anymore. But we've got a 90-minute timer, though, which is more generous than most Western tournaments, right? Most Western tournaments, I think, are 75 minutes these days.
I'm very curious about this piece about Bu Mahjong.
What? I had to go back. Do you know what? Don't anything you see here. I had to actually go back to Kuroki yesterday and qualify some stuff, because so Kuroki's from Kansai, so sometimes his Japanese obviously.
It's a bit of a dialect.
He's got a really interesting way of talking and writing. It's very direct, and it's a really vivid sort of, and a lot of baseball metaphor. I'm not very good at baseball, but I had to qualify some of the rules, because I was like, this is really interesting. Can you tell me what this means? I don't get this. And then I questioned it, and I got this huge dialogue back, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm going to read that later. That's
actually really interesting. I'm really curious about.
Yeah. But it's difficult, right? Because you read some of these articles, and they definitely come from an understanding of status in Japan that we just don't have. So even this article here that Dave's reading, I have filled it out in the parts. So not all of this is great words. Some of this I've been like, well, I'm going to have to, what is one word? I'm going to have to write out in 2 sentences, because it just doesn't make sense otherwise for us, Well,
I think this part of the article is very interesting to me. Because he talks a lot about how, the Mahjong world's okay with the game being opaque. It's okay with it being a niche thing.
And that's exactly the experience I said, that professional documentary. I don't care if no one plays. I don't care if Mahjong dies. This is how we play.
Yeah. And yet M-League is really pushing Mahjong in the opposite direction. It's saying it wants Mahjong to be a big game, a big popular game that lots of people look at. And it's challenging. And how do we make this enjoyable? And he talks about Bu Mahjong, and I'm very curious about Bu Mahjong. So some people might know this already, but I've never really engaged with it. So you start with
this is new to me. I've got to be honest. Bu Mahjong, I had to look it up. I've
heard of this. I think some people have talked to me about this in the past. So it's saying
is this definitely Ben Boas then?
Probably
yes.
This
has Ben Boas written all over it. Ben Boas, he's this guy. He actually did his. I'm gonna get this wrong. He's a Fulbright scholar, right?
Fulbright.
So he got a Fulbright scholarship to do a thesis on Mahjong. And he put a lot of work in. He made some great networks. He just, despite being in the Mahjong community, Ben is still in it, but he's sort of a little bit separated now. He's doing a lot of
he's doing a lot of work for.
He's doing a lot of work about
cultural
Japan
engagement
and stuff. Yeah, he writes books, really good books.
He does write books.
Get hold of them.
I can mail some stuff. Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, he's just one of those super smart people that terrifies me. Anyway, but yeah, he's the kind of guy who would know Bu Mahjong, because he knows everything. So if you ever meet Ben Boas, if you ever have the privilege, if you come to 2025, I'm pretty sure he will turn up. Just pick his brains as much.
Oh, he'll for sure be at 2025. There's no way he won't be. There's no way he won't be at least present. There's no way he won't be around.
He's super excited. Do you know what? God failed him by not making him British. He would have done really well as a British eccentric person.
Wow.
Do you not think?
Can I become a British eccentric person? Can I just move there and be like, hello, I'm an eccentric person. My eccentric person.
You're too well dressed. You can't be one of our eccentric people. Ben is just he's just everywhere. He's just doing all these things, and his brain is firing on all cylinders constantly, and it's amazing to watch.
So let's go through these Bu Mahjong rules. Make sure I'm understanding them. Start with a manga amount
Well,
applies.
I was about to say I don't entirely understand.
So it sounds like you start with 8,000 points. Just end of story. 8,000 points. The game ends if a player is up by a Mangan or more, or if a player goes to 0. So if I hit 0, or I exceed 16,000, then the game ends. Being top is everything. So you win if you win.
Yeah, so that was the top is everything. That was the one which really confused me. Let me see if I can quickly read it and understand what that meant. No, that was no. I we should talk about that as well. Okay, it makes total sense now.
Okay, wait, what makes sense?
So what it's actually talking about is it's not being top. It's being the only person who is over your starting score. Because you get 10 points from everyone. Whereas if 2 people are over their score, you only get 5 points. So I'm going to have to flesh out this point system at the end. That's obviously the bit that's kind of missing for me. So it's back to the floating Uma, which Armor does, right? Why do they call it an Armor? They don't call it floating, do they?
You know what you mean. It's a sliding Uma, whatever it is.
Sliding.
Whatever they call it.
I don't care how to call it. I just want to make sure that people understand. Yeah, but sliding or floating Uma, that's what that means. Okay, I can flesh that out because that's a huge.
Okay, this is if one person is up, and they're the only one up in the next hand, the points are doubled.
So when up, I think up we should probably read here over your starting score.
Well, but it seems to include 0.
Positive,
it seems to include 0 though.
Okay.
0 seems to be because this is if someone wins, and that means 3 people are up. It's a Chambo. Which implies this says if you make a Mangan on East 1, it's a Chambo. If you sumo, suddenly you're top. Because that would imply that if I roan Mangan, if it's East 1 beginning of the game, we all have 8,000 points. I roan Mangan off someone. That means there's +0, +0, +8, -8. But that is a win making 3 people up.
Yes.
I think so. I think that
I mean, basically, you're less playing Mahjong tiles here and more playing the score chart, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is very much like you're trying to finagle the score chart the best way you can.
I mean, people who love numbers, people who can keep them in their head will love this.
It's actually really interesting, and I actually really like this, but I want to make sure I understand it fully.
Yeah, do you know what I said? I've got Kuroki kindly sent a huge explanation. I think I've done a little bit of slack. I have to fix some of this, and I could add in this extra explanation. I think probably the best thing to do is to sort of write it out, you test it, and then if we can get it to work properly, just publish it on our website so that people could try it if they're interested.
Yeah, I see what he's saying. You're always playing the all-ice hand.
I think I've done some because there were a few bits I had to get some clarifications. I wasn't quite sure on some of it, so let me go back and sort of take that back, and maybe next week we can talk about it again once I've sorted out. Because he's obviously just briefly just laying it out because he wants to make the point about this is you're fighting the points here.
Yeah, I mean,
being very aware of what sinks someone else and raises you up, right?
I think if I'm understanding the bulk of what he's saying here, and this is where it becomes something interesting for me, because he goes down, he talks about the details. He says they got the editors of Kindai Mahjong to play. Most of them didn't like it. They said it was too stressful because you can't actually win your big hands and you have to fuss over points and particulars. The only response I got was a suggestion to play proper Mahjong. That would be a typical reaction. What a grim man. He's so everyone's down on his hobby, but. What he seems to be saying, if I'm understanding, so please correct me if I'm getting the wrong thing out of this, is this Bu Mahjong is super fun for people who really love technical Mahjong. Really in-depth technical Mahjong. You have to be really careful and really aware and really playing the game.
Yeah.
And even very passionate Mahjong players otherwise don't want to go that deep into it. Yeah. And then on the next layer of the onion out, you have casual players who would never care about this.
And I think as well, like it's another aspect of it, right? Is that people are used to playing the way they are, right? They're comfortable. They can understand what other people's conditions are. Whereas now you're asking people to think totally differently about conditions and how what you're doing impacts them in those new conditions. And that's always kind of annoying, right?
And it's hard. And what I find so interesting about this is he's coming to this conclusion that I feel like I don't see many people come to. He talks about Abema. Abema is a streaming platform. What does Abema want? Abema wants viewer numbers, and that's all they want. More people in the door. They do not care. Do you love Mahjong? Do you hate Mahjong? They don't care as long as you're watching them.
And I think that's a key difference between what has been produced until Abema came on the scene. In the Mondo and stuff, everyone, like, you speak to anyone, and they're so passionate about Mahjong. They love it, and everyone talks hours and hours. And Abema, obviously they do like Mahjong, but in the end, they're I've been to their offices. Like, that's a big corporation. They need to see figures.
There's this sentence which I think is incredibly meaningful. I pointed that out to you earlier, and I hope it's accurately translated. Yeah. But I'm sure it is. I think we need to be more aware that M-League and Abema are now at the center of the professional Mahjong world. Mm-hmm. I think this is the thing I've been waiting to hear people figure out, which is the people productizing this are owning it. You can say that M-League. I mean, M-League.
So, and I'm gonna take this to the West. Mm-hmm. We talk about Ricci, we talk about MCL, we talk about all these rule sets. However, most Western players play American Mahjong. They play NMJL, and they buy their cards every single year.
Is that the most? You think that's most?
I think okay. So I'm people who play it in a sort of more coordinated. I mean, I am horribly cutting at all the Chinese diaspora and people who play it in their homes. But people who will attend events, who consider it part of their hobby as part of their identity as a hobby, there are far more NMJL players than there are Ricci players. End of story. Their events can command thousands of people. Yeah. And it's not until WRC, and even WRC, if someone said you have to run an event of 1,000 people for WRC, I'd be like, oh, geez, I can't do it. We do not have 1,000 people who will come to this event.
It'd be hard. I wonder if we could do it, but we'd really be scraping the bottom of the barrel.
If someone said 1,000 NMJL players in Vegas, they can do it.
They could do it.
I
wouldn't be shocked by it.
No. And that's the joke of it all, right? And I don't know, like, yeah, you talk about, Dave has often talked about product, and I always push back on it because the tiny little socialist heart I have, I hate the consumer capitalist world that we've built. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product you buy, though, as Mahjong Soul has pointed out.
Mahjong Soul is a product you buy, though.
It is,
Mahjong
but
Soul is
I know,
a product you feed money into.
It's a product that most people don't buy. It's a product that a few sods do buy.
I feel like that's not...
It is a product. It's a product, though, right?
I feel like that's not the key thing that I'm trying to
okay, I'm sorry.
I
kind of derailed you then.
No, it's that's what conversation is, right? I think the key thing here is realizing, like, you can talk about who you think the best Mahjong players are. Not that M-League players aren't great Mahjong players. Like, you could say, well, you could say, if you have this opinion, well, M-League players are really good, but I think the best Mahjong players are over here. And, the M-League rules are pretty good, but I think the best Mahjong rules are over there.
Do you know what Dave's saying? Dave's saying what I hear in Japan quite a bit.
Yeah. But you can say that. That can be your opinion. And you might even be right.
Yeah.
And no one cares. No one cares because M-League is the product everyone is buying. And I'm not saying this out of any animosity or negativity towards M-League at all. No. I'm just saying M-League is the ambassador right now. M-League is the thing displaying your game to people. And if we look at the numbers for Mahjong in Japan, that number of people is, even with M-League, not going up. And something I've been pounding my fist about for 10 years is, if you like playing this game, you can play it all you want. If you want to build and grow this game, you need to understand how to get people in the door. And seeing this understanding finally after all this time, that this large, widely broadcast commercial product that's getting people in the door is like actually the linchpin of things, is heartening to me.
The important thing that Kuroki acknowledges, though, is that not everyone who watches M-League plays Mahjong.
Yes, and that's understanding the pyramid of audience.
But he says that. I still, having watched M-League, and I said I really like M-League, And one thing that makes it difficult to translate out for us is that he says that. However, I think most people in Japan, regardless of whether they play or don't play Mahjong, will have an understanding of Mahjong.
Yes, that's a challenge for us in the
So,
West.
and I think you see that in poker, right? I know people who watch poker but don't really play it all that often. They enjoy watching poker games because there's a general understanding of what a poker hand is. And it doesn't take long to watch it and you can pick up, oh, yes, I remember that, You can't do that with us. Because if you just put Mahjong in front of Westerners, they've got nothing to key into.
Right, but I what I think is important here is understanding that hierarchy of audience and this even lower underlayer of the hierarchy. Because what you have is you have the people who will watch your stuff and don't even do it, but they like watching it. And then on top of that, you have people who actually play. And then on top of that, you have people who actually care about playing well. And then on top of that, you have people who like actually get skilled. Like there's a pyramid. You build the pyramid.
Okay, so I mean, I'm going to come from a place of ignorance, but we're on Twitch. This is the right place to ask it. Do people watch people streaming Fortnite but not really play Fortnite? Is that a thing that's happening?
Fuck yeah.
See, that's always baffled me. Huh.
Of course.
I mean, I've watched people play Savage on Final Fantasy XIV. I would never play a Savage anything.
I mean, the whole series of like let's play type things. I'm gonna watch someone play a video game that I'm not playing and that I maybe never will play, so that I kind of have the experience of playing through it with them. Like these are things people watch things, but the thing is, they watch people playing Fortnite. They don't play Fortnite, but as you said, they understand what's going on in Fortnite. Enough that watching it is enjoy. They get something out of watching it. It's not just flashy lights on a screen. They know what's happening, but they don't put the time into playing. They don't maybe have the time to play it. They prefer to just watch, et cetera, et cetera. Like this is a real thing. This is a real method of engagement that people have.
I just don't know how to do that here.
Well, it's hard. You have to figure out how to produce media that is accessible enough to people that they will enjoy watching it. One angle that has worked to some degree is if you have streamers people already like to watch and they sit down and play Mahjong, then I enjoy watching this person, hanging out with this person, and they'll kind of explain to me as they go what's going on, and I'm drawn enough to hanging out with them as part of their audience that I'll go through it and then I'll learn a little bit about it and then I'll have some fun seeing if they win or lose. Like this is an angle that people have done. I'm not saying it's the only way.
I mean, Masca, that's exactly what kind of Kuroki says at one point. He says, you could watch a rugby player tackle someone and you're going to attempt it the next week.
Yeah.
League of Legends is just totally incomprehensible. I don't know how.
I have no problem. Let me tell you something about League of Legends, which is very interesting actually. I would say League of Legends, many years ago, I haven't really followed it in a while, but League of Legends is a game that I pretty much learned to comprehend entirely through watching it.
Let's not have this part on the screen because we haven't talked about this part. Go to the front. Go to the beginning.
The beginning
of the article, because that's where they talk about the rugby player tackling people.
Oh, where's the rugby player tackling people?
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Yeah, no. Yeah. There you go. Would be Japanese pro rugby player. I don't know. At the beginning. You're at the very first, the second paragraph. Where are you? You're on the second page.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I see. Yeah.
I don't know who Michael Letch is. I have no idea. I do not.
He's a famous guy.
I don't. I guess he is. Do you know what? That's the one thing I've noticed. A lot of Mahjong people are into sports, and I'm not. And so every time I translate their things, they're using sports analogies, and I feel like that lady in that video about how you should use sports analogies because it's gender specific apparently.
Which is also that's sexist to begin with.
Which is I always find that weirdly sexist. Yeah. Like, well, I know women can be into sports. It's just not this woman, and I know men who are not into sports.
Yeah, that's into like weird double sexism. It's like, okay, so don't use sports analogies because it's like you're just hanging out with the boys doing sports because now you're saying sports is like an entirely male-coded thing that women couldn't be into, which isn't supposed to be true because women can be into anything anyway, and some women really love sports. So like, what do I do? Like, I guess I could. I don't know. There's no winning this. There's infinite rabbit holes to go down here, and I'm not going to start.
You could just not say things that are totally like. Just imagine if I went into work and I started making Mahjong references in my presentations, everyone would be like, "What?" No one would suddenly accuse me of being sexist. You can generally
know within like one reference whether anyone is getting it.
Yeah.
If I was like, "Oh, it's just like a good try in rugby," and everyone just looks at me with blank faces, like.
The interesting thing, though, for Ricci terms is that some of them are actually in the common vernacular of Japanese. So chombo, which I think we discussed before, can sound a little bit racist, so I wouldn't recommend using it if
I
you're not really hot on your Japanese. I don't think personally the etymology is racist. However, it doesn't sound great. And then things like Ricci are also in regular etymology. Like people will know that if you say Ricci, that means you're one away from achieving something. So
I'm weirdly of the opinion that Mahjong is a great side hobby to things like sports.
I think so.
I'm of the opinion that many people who play sports would benefit from some of the virtues that you get out of playing mahjong. Because it comes up in things like sports a lot. Is like, yeah, when do you go for it? When do you not? When do you have to play? And when do you choose to fold? Things like that. I think come up a lot of times in many different sports, in many different situations. And giving players more experience with that is a big deal. So if anyone happens to run a large sporting team, we
want to test your people. We want to see
test.
if Mahjong makes them smarter. I don't see why it wouldn't, right? Like we tend to. The problem is humans, because we have to work and life sucks. We only have so much time to devote, and we tend to just kind of obsess on the thing we like. And if we're gamers or board gamers, then we obsess over that and play too much of that and totally neglect our physical health. And then if you're really into sports, then you run too much and do a terrible ankle injury to yourself and don't use your brain. It's So she has the fighting game community fighting.
Don't say FGC community.
Okay,
that's
good.
like saying ATM machine.
I
the C in FGC is for community.
Like PIN number. I lived with a housemate who would just lose it every time someone said PIN number.
Yeah, PIN number. Yeah, don't say PIN number. The added PIN is for number.
Has done more
I would say they've been doing a lot of work lately. They've been putting
when you say outreach for fighting games or mahjong?
For mahjong.
Really? Why?
Yes.
Why are they doing that?
Because a lot of them have gotten into it, and a lot of them are used to the concept of outreach because they're in the fighting game community. They play games that only grow, and they've learned this lesson by being part of that community, I believe, which is if you want to have a healthy competitive community, you need to get people in the door. A community that is insular and exclusive is not a healthy community, will not grow, and will not survive.
It's not that they don't like seeing women with not enough clothes on.
What?
I'm just concerned that they like it because of Mahjong, so.
No, they're completely inured to it is a problem, but that's a separate problem.
Okay, so they don't even see it.
They play fighting games. Like, what are fighting games full of? But not so awesome anime depictions of women. Which again, I'd say most of them are just kind of like, well, they just take it as par for the course. This is part of the media, so it is what it is. Whatever. Like, and they find it to be a good competitive game, which I think Mahjong is a good competitive game. So I'm not going to argue about that.
Someone approached me and asked me about Mahjong in a fighting game event. They were interested to know how we got around gaming laws in Nevada, I guess.
The challenge with the FGC folks is
the WRC is easier because FGC they give away prize money, right? Whereas WRC we don't give away prize money. And I was just like, well, we just don't give away prize money.
And then they're baffled by this. Like, well, how do you get anyone to show up?
Yeah.
Like, well,
and I think they forget. Like I think sometimes the few of them from the FGC that I have spoken to have they have an inflated idea of how much skill there is in Mahjong. I would not like to defend Mahjong's skill level. And obviously there is, but I think it's difficult to say that there is that much skill in an exhibition event.
A fighting game is a very different beast when you think about it. First of all, it is a game of skill. It is quantifiably a game of skill.
There's no luck.
They don't have to worry about.
There's no luck.
There's usually very little to no luck in fighting games, but that means they don't really have to worry about prize money. So their engagement with prize money can be much more direct because I don't think they have any risk of having a fighting game labeled a game of chance. So that's good. That means that to be super clear what I'm saying, what they're doing with fighting games is quantifiably and legally not gambling, and thusly offering prize money is entirely legal for them, and that makes their lives very easy and wonderful. But I think they are, because it's such a game of skill, and because a fighting game is much closer to chess in how it works, where it's like the better player should beat the less good player every single time. It is interesting to see them engage a bit with Mahjong, where being highly skilled at Mahjong, I think, is a much more long tail activity than it is this match activity. And also just a 4-player game versus 2-player game. A lot of things are very different in how you build your events around that to be successful. So I think it's just a little bit of culture shock and something very different than what they're used to. And I think it's something that can be.
I mean, I've always said that whilst Tenhou exists as a hand, if anyone took us to court, we had to defend ourselves as a game of skill.
I could do it.
I think we would have to. I think we'd really like, if someone said we have to start making this more a skill game, we would have to really be aggressively doing more to the rule set. And that was attempted, that people tried to make duplicate Mahjong, akin to duplicate bridge, to try and shake that problem out so that people could start offering prize money at events.
The difference, there's an important difference, Kyrol, in that it's subjective luck, but not objective luck. In other words, if Gemma and I play rock, paper, scissors, I will choose rock, paper, or scissors with there's no luck to that at all. I have made a choice. Gemma will choose rock, paper, or scissors, and based on our two choices, one of us will win. And thus, there's really no luck input to that except subjectively. From my perspective, I have no way to know what Gemma will choose. From her perspective, she has no way to know what I will choose. But like objectively speaking, these are not random events. These are chosen events by each of us. While if Gemma and I play coin flip, the coin flip is now a separate objective luck-based event to both of us. Neither of us make any choice about the coin flipping. We have no control over that event, and that's where you get into Gamblingsville.
I mean, I just think, I would, if someone wanted me to defend it over, 1,000 games, a league, I would have that. I would be able to have that discussion. If someone said, well, over 8 hand is Mahjong skill or luck? I mean, obviously it's both, but I think that the proportion of luck becomes much greater in an exhibition event. That's it, because we have things like Tenhou. If you can win and not have done anything, that's a game of luck. That's really problematic.
I don't know. I disagree. I don't think.
Again, the problem is, and again, from WRC, we're looking at a global perspective, and you're like, okay.
What I disagree with is, I
think we don't need Tenhou. You could take Tenhou out.
Yeah, we could take Tenhou out. It's stupid. I'll never win one anyway, so just take it out. Take it out forever. I disagree a little bit because I feel like what you can say about Mahjong, if I wanted to come up with something that applied to Mahjong unilaterally, it would be that there's a degree of luck in Mahjong as to what tiles you will actually get.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. The skill in Mahjong lets you turn the input into a better output. A more skilled player will get a better output out of the tiles they get than a less skilled player.
Right, but then
wait. I want to go with this because it's really. I don't want anything on the record.
Yeah.
I'm going to get some free lawyers.
Yeah, get some legal counsel before you proceed.
This is the absolute foundation of duplicate bridge.
Yeah.
Which is considered a game of skill and not a game of luck. The idea that given the same input cards, a more skilled player will get a better output than a less skilled player.
Yes.
Now, if you are allowing the flow of input tiles to be random by shuffling them, it is difficult to say over a short term whether that skill gap between input and output will be enough to give me a proper tournament ranking that is an absolute sorting of the skill levels of the player in the tournament over Hey Chan Chan. That's true. But I do still believe that a skilled player will have performed substantially better in that tournament given those inputs than an unskilled player would have. And that's where I will die on that hill about skill matters in Mahjong. Even if I do agree that over 8 games, it's not guaranteed the most skilled player will be number 1. Over 8,000 games, it's far more guaranteed the most skilled player will be number 1.
I mean, we could argue that if you really want to go to the Olympics, you've already won the luck lottery, right? Because you have the right genetics. Like it's bullshit.
That too, yeah.
No one is going. I'm at the age of 12 or 13 or 14. There was no way I'd be like, do you know what? I'm going to become an Olympian. There's just no way. My body just was never set up for it.
I mean, yeah.
Aqua, duplicate Mahjong was sort of mainly established to try and get Mahjong into the Olympics. But if chess can't get into the Olympics, Mahjong ain't getting anywhere near it. And I don't know if people really, 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 really should want to be in the Olympics. If we were in the Olympics, most of us would no longer be playing Mahjong because we'd be foisted out by state actors. You wouldn't even be able to drink a cup of coffee because you start failing their drug testing. And it would just suck. Having Mahjong in the Olympics would suck.
I don't know.
I know football's in the Olympics. And do you know what? No good football plays in the Olympics. Like, they don't. Because it sucks.
I guess if you're saying like the requirements of being an amateur athlete to qualify for the Olympics are rough. The Olympics do
I,
already suck.
yeah, in the end, it'd be the same. It'd be America and Russia, or China. They just win. All of us small little countries, all of us who can't really afford to spend all the money that it requires to train someone up to be an Olympian level, we will not get a look in.
Yeah, it would really be rough if the country of origin of a game kept holding like world championships and then winning it.
I mean, I think. No, I think the Americans would probably make a good challenge. They would. But you know what Americans do? They spend a lot of money to make sure they win Olympic medals.
Yeah, but there's not given that the Olympics is not or given that Mahjong isn't a game of physical training, short of just having a larger, short of having the stats, right? We have many people, we have 300 million people to try to pick the best people out of, sure.
But they would take someone and they would make it so they don't have to work anymore. All they do is Mahjong. That's what they do.
There is no nation on earth that could not do a similar thing for one or two people in that nation.
No. I mean, most Olympians who go from smaller nations, that is not their primary objective. They have other things, which is why the small nations don't do well at the Olympics.
But I guarantee you, those small nations aren't so poor that they couldn't afford.
I think even Britain struggles, which is why the true people who really want to be really good athletes, they go to America.
Well, that becomes like weird immigration, right? Like that's weird. It's like an athlete dream.
Because America builds a system to create top athletes, top Olympians. And if you want to be a top Olympian, you have to get into the system. And Britain is never going to have that system. Britain is a big country. It's not a small country. It's a big country, but it's still not big enough.
Not that big. It's a little tiny.
A population-wise, we're pretty. We're not insignificant. We've got a lot of people on teeny tiny island. As I said, I just don't think we'd want state actors involved in our game. I think it would become very unfun very quickly.
The path that I could see being a realistic path towards. I mean, actually, let me just make sure. Are we actually done with this article? Do we feel like we've seen everything in here there is to see?
We can pick some more up next. We can probably some because I'm interested. So I'm interested. Kuroki wrote a whole article about me and posted.
We can do the article that Joe.
There was a lot about me in his article he posted today. So
I saw this tweet.
I didn't know he was going to write about me before I translate. So I saw.
Dun dun dun.
I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then suddenly he sent me this like, can you fact check this for me? I'm like, oh, it's all about me. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. The weirdest part about that was when Google auto-translated it for me, it used he as the pronoun for you the whole time, probably just because of a pronoun translation issue. So I kept being like, yeah, I did this, and he did this. And I'm like, whoa.
No, Google Translate tends to think that everyone is a male for their pronouns, which always baffled me. I was like, surely you can force it to use the, there, they, there, as a neutral.
Like, if I had to have a default, I'd push it to be them, at least.
Yeah,
the only way I can see Mahjong getting into the Olympics, really, and I hope you're listening, because you tap everything anyway, is if, like, China wakes up one day and is like, oh, yeah, that game we invented that spread around the world and lots of people like and is, like, something we have rights to claim as a cultural heritage. Let's actually not hate it and instead celebrate it and put it in the Olympics, please. Here's $1 billion, Olympic Committee.
I think the Chinese have been the most involved. They're the group who've been the most involved in trying to get it considered as an Olympic sport. It's difficult to say, well, all of China hates Mahjong because, of course, it's a huge country of a lot of people and there's lots of different groups thinking and doing different things. Certainly, there's been a lot of support within China to get Mahjong as an Olympic, which is duplicate Mahjong International League. That is, that they've got they have had huge Chinese sponsors in the past. It's very much a Chinese-driven organization. But
I wish it didn't.
I will just repeat: if chess is not in the Olympics, Mahjong won't be.
Yeah, I don't think Mahjong has any ability to jump ahead of chess at this point in its life. Maybe one day in the future I'll disagree with myself.
And if they're going to sit there and be like, oh, we should get an Asian game in as well. Let's say we're going to select chess. Can you say chess the Western game? No, definitely not. But let's just take whatever people will say. Let's have another game which is more in the East. Then you're going to choose shogi, surely, or go. You're not going to choose Mahjong. Right? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to die of coughing now.
Oh, don't die of coughing, please.
Sorry, but yeah, I don't know. People have said it, and I just don't think wanting Mahjong in the Olympics is a good idea, even if it was achievable. And look, if you want to do it, do it. Prove me wrong.
All right.
But I probably won't be there
BRB
anymore.
calling Olympic
I probably
Committee.
won't be there anymore because they'll found someone far smarter than me in the UK to be the representative for Team GB. But yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want to be replaced by some wunderkind, you know, who's just never left their house.
You'd have to stay on as a figurehead. Look, the thing that we've gotten today is we've decided Tokyo Big Sight is where we're going to have 2025. Because it's very geometric. And we're going to project your face onto the side of it. So Gemma's giant Mahjong tournament. Projected. Perfect.
We talked about Mahjong the whole time, and I didn't talk about Clive once.
No, we didn't talk about Clive. Tell me about Clive. We'll finish up with some quick Clive chats. How do you feel about Clive?
Do you know what? I think I'm enjoying 16. I will say, do you know what? I feel like at the moment, like there's only two extremes now in game building. Like, you can either have a complete open world, like Zelda's Tears, or you have to run through corridors, like 16.
Well,
I just want to explore it. Like, it's beautiful. Like, I'm running and I'm like, wow, it would be really nice if I could just like veer off the path a little bit, just a little bit, not too much. And I think that the Final Fantasy VII remake did a better job of. I was obviously on a corridor, but I definitely felt like I was having more of an exploration experience, and I haven't felt that in 16. And I know that although they're talking about all this politics and all those people, we're going to the moon at some point. We're definitely going to the moon. I don't know when, but we're going to the moon. And the other thing is, like, Jesus Christ, Square, can you try and write a female? Just try a little harder, because they're awful. Like, they're awful females that they've written. They're so Square.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with corridors. I was actually very okay with the FF13 corridors. I'm okay with these corridors. I'm fine. Because at the end of the day, if the game is like, I want to give you the experience of walking from A to B. That's what's going on here in the story. Yeah. You're going from A to B. That's what's happening. Like, I see why it's frustrating. I'm not going to say it's like the best way to do a story, but at the end of like, do they want me dicking around and exploring? No.
But then this is what, like, Final Fantasy VII had the corridors, but I felt like I was exploring an environment. And they obviously can do it. And I mean, having played Final, I was so excited by the way they built little, like, residence areas, and it felt like a bigger world that I was in. They haven't achieved that yet with 16, and I'm not so far in. I will admit they haven't achieved that. And also, maybe I'm just missing turn-based, but like, I do just feel like I'm bashing the button and I can do no wrong. And that's upsetting to me.
Action combat is a hard thing, I think, to do. And the problem with action combat is it's very engaging. Like, it keeps you engaged. You're not sitting there being like, okay, I guess attack it. But like, you either make it real easy, and then, yeah, you're bashing the button, you can do no wrong. Or you make it real hard, and you're like, I have not mastered all the Bayonetta combos yet. I can't play this game. God, yeah. And it's like, and some people love it. I enjoy that in a game sometimes. I think that's great, but it's not going to be very accessible. A lot of people are just never going to want to get good at that, and so, like, it's hard. I actually, again, this is another Final Fantasy 13 shout out. I really liked that, like, archetype swapping system, because it wasn't perfect, but I saw in it this idea of, like, some middle ground between just like boring menus and you need to be the master of combos, and giving you some choice to make that felt strategic when you were making the choices, even if it wasn't. I don't know. I thought it was
again. I thought 7, the remake, did a really good job.
I need to play that more.
Like, again, I just felt that there was more. You know, I like the fact I like being defeated by the first boss. I like having. I haven't had to think really, and I know that because you can wear different pendants or whatever, and I'm like. I just think that you have to wear these different pendants, and then you can decide whether you make the action more difficult for yourself or not. And I'm like, I am a human. I just want shit to be easy.
No, they were. I think they're just scared of, like, scaring people away with action combat who really just want to cruise through the story, or making them feel like by choosing easy mode, they're somehow, you know, cheating themselves out of the real experience. People get really fussy about these things sometimes, which is kind of silly to me.
Oh, I am fussy. Yeah,
The Adventures of Jack Final Fantasy. I played a bit of that. I really want to play more of it. I liked it. For me, it felt good. I like that kind of thing. And maybe you could probably make it even harder for yourself if you really like that kind of thing. But I'm not everyone, and I know a lot of people really don't like those like Dark Souls like technical. Well, it was kind of between Dark Souls and Devil May Cry, where it's like an action, but also kind of technical in the combos and that. Again, some people hate that, and I respect that they just don't want to be sitting there learning to do combos to play through a cinematic story game. So it's gonna vary.
I also don't like British accents anymore. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Get rid of yours.
No, well, my British accent is not some ridiculously hammy accent done because they're like, oh, can you make it sound like Game of Thrones?
Yeah, a lot of Game of Thrones inspiration.
The scripting is amazing. The casting is amazing. I can't fault any of that. It's so high quality.
The voice acting is good. Like, it's actually good. And I feel like this game, if the voice acting wasn't good, it would be...
I would go away from good. I would say it's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It is really excellent. Like, I don't know. I presumably had translators and then script editors because it's too good for them not to have translated and then edited properly to make
almost
it
like
really,
they
really
cared about the American script here, the English script. crazy, but that's good.
Do you know? Actually, I don't think they pulled back in that respect personally, but it's I don't know. Like it's good. It's really, really good. It's just I just don't know if I like this Game of Thrones world.
I'm curious where they go with it. It seems like they're trying to do something a little more grim.
No, we're going to the bloody moon. At some point, we will go to the moon. Magic will just go crazy, and that's how it'll end. And you'll be really enjoying this political thing, like every single Final Fantasy game. You're really enjoying it, and then for some reason they just forget all of that because magic's happening.
Something magic happens.
And the moon, magic and the moon. And I know it's going to go that way.
Maybe they'll find some kind of dragon inside the moon.
No, probably. To be fair, if they're going to Game of Thrones, that's basically what happened with the TV Game of Thrones, right? Like you're enjoying your political machinations, and then suddenly, just
but wait,
crap.
magic is back, and it's like,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, I hated Daenerys. God. Anyway, this is all of my concern about Clive, but I am really enjoying it.
I'm glad you had some time to get to that. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching us.
Sorry we didn't do a game review.
We didn't do a game review. We were talking about Mahjong the whole time. We were on topic the whole time, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
But we'll try to be a little more balanced next time. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to go get some delicious sauerkraut fish because I have a date with sauerkraut fish today.
Ooh, Mahjong talk is fine. Thanks, Imaska.
This place opened like 2 blocks south of my house, and they just make these giant spicy sauerkraut fish soups.
Oh, good. I'm glad. It's been interesting. We didn't even touch on some of the topics in the article.
Yeah, there's still more to talk about. We got a lot. Of.
It was a really, really good article. If you do speak Japanese, I would recommend going and
find my house.
Subscribe to Kuroki's note because he just has some. Or just buy his book, man. Like. He's good. He's just really, really good. He's just really interesting and smart, and yeah, he's brilliant.
Nye brother Chinese sauerkraut fish.
Sauerkraut fish. This is confusing to me.
Sauerkraut fish. No.
It's not like that cold, like sardines you can get in that.
No. It's a hot soup. It's a hot soup that's really spicy. And
where's the sauerkraut come into it?
Because there's pickled cabbage in it.
Oh.
I think they call it sauerkraut because sauerkraut is like pickled cabbage.
It is.
I don't know what you actually call the dish. I bet if I could find the name of the dish.
I just wouldn't want to heat sauerkraut up, you know. It is a fermented food.
It's so good.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find like the actual. Here, wait, hold on. Let me see if I can. I'll send this to you so you can look at it. They have a whole.
So I can be sad. I'm not got sauerkraut.
You can come and get sauerkraut fish when you come to America to visit.
I'm waiting for your event.
Oh my god! All right. Let me get moving. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
I'm going to eat everything.
Watching, guys.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye for now.